What is up, guys? California Phantom here. I'm here to talk about what the implications of a Skydio 3 means to you and what it can do for the drone industry. First things first, if we're going to talk about a Skydio 3, we're going to have to talk about the Skydio II and, more importantly, the Skydio R1. The Skydio R1 first debuted in 2018 to the amazement of everyone. It had a sort of boxed fan design. It had debuted its obstacle avoidance system, its cameras all the way around. It was sort of revolutionary in the sense that nobody was doing anything like it. It was operated purely by a smartphone, and I think that was its Achilles heel. I remember speaking about it initially with its limited function and capabilities to the smartphone. It was no wonder why it really didn't sell well. They knew, the team at Skydio knew, they're going to have a controller. They're going to have to bring more than the table than just limiting the entire function or interface to the cell phone. That brings us to the Skydio II, which debuted in December of 2019, so you can just call it 2020. It included the remote control, which was outsourced by Parrot. It was the exact controller for the Anafi, so Parrot Anafi was the controller for the Skydio II. It also included a remote control that was a GPS acting beacon device, which added a ton of new features that the Skydio 1 or the R1 didn't have, which is why it sold a hell of a lot better than the R1. If you're following the evolution of this, we have a 2-year cycle. You got to add in COVID, so maybe add an additional year, maybe a year and a half. So we're about maybe a year and a half away from seeing at least a sketch or an introduction or maybe even an official launch of a Skydio 3. Things that were shortchanged in the Skydio 2, I remember vividly because it was something that I spoke to with many members of the Skydio team. And I remember a comment in particular that stuck out to me, and they referred to people operating the drone from a controller as tent stakes. They definitely have this sort of corporate culture of Karma is so much more than a drone! And unfortunately for them, I think that it's limiting the amount of sales and it's limiting what its full potential can be if they just added some sort of key features. These key features are, it's got to have an in-house controller. No more relying on a third party to try and figure out something that you are not prepared to do or you don't want to do. You got to bring it. You got to bring an incredible controller, something that's comfortable and as easy and as portable as the drone itself. Maybe something a little bit similar to the DJI Smart Controller, something with an integrated screen with a higher nits than you'd see in a typical cell phone. Maybe have it hot-spottable, connect it to your phone to get that raw map data. We're not asking for much, but it's got to be in-house. If it looks anything or represents or is even close to this smart controller, you're miles ahead of the game. This would be the first step. The second step, and it's going to be the key step, is the FAA has already released its guidelines as far as what a drone manufacturer and a drone needs to have to be capable to safely fly above people and have those exemptions. And right now it's a very, very rare, very tedious process to do that commercially. Certainly next to impossible if you're not doing it for commercial purposes. But what would be revolutionary, in my opinion, please leave your comments down below if you disagree with me. I would love to see the Skydio 3 be a mesh between the R1 and the Skydio 2. And what I mean by the mesh is part of the features of the R1 is actually the FAA's requirement to be able to fly above people. It has to have a shroud and protect all of the props. This is not simple prop guards that can be snapped on. They have to be a full shroud. So with the R1, it's practically designed and engineered already to be compliant to that. So if they were able to make the Skydio 3, I don't know what of course it would look like, but if they were able to mesh that technology between the Skydio 2 and the R1, having that shrouded blade, they would be able to create, in my opinion, a absolute commercial and domestic success. What they'll be doing is they'll be marrying that industry-leading obstacle avoidance, that AI technology. They'll be pairing it to an in-house controller that will allow you to get shots that you see on homebrew systems. Things like the Cinewhoop with skeletonized GoPros, where people are getting these super tight shots. I just got recently done watching the shot that followed through the bowling alley, which was absolutely amazing. The Skydio 3 would be able to create those shots on pilots who aren't necessarily as skilled. They'll be able to rely on that obstacle avoidance, that AI technology, to be able to get in super tight. At the same time, they'll have a very high-end, pleasurable experience with that premium in-house controller, hopefully with a high-nit screen, right? So if we're outdoors, we're wanting to take things outside, we won't have to rely on a cell phone or hoods or all these cables to pairing it to phones. You'll have a fully self-contained controller, and most importantly, you will be able to apply and you'll be able to get the one-off or first ever above human flight permitted drone in the domestic market. I mean, as a non-commercial or commercial pilot, I think that the Skydio 3, if it had the features of the R1 plus a little bit more, they would be able to apply to the FAA and get that certification. And if they're able to get the certification from the FAA for those flights above people, with a camera that's just the exact same camera out of the Skydio 2, I don't think anybody really has issues with the Skydio 2 in terms of camera quality. I think they would be a runaway success. I mean, they're so close, just completely destroying Big Brother DJI and really giving Autel a run for its money, that I would love to see them go out of their comfort zone and create that controller and create that and get that certification from the FAA. And I know people are going to want to say, well, what about specific sensor size? What about specific camera specs? You know, typical goodies I think we're looking at, it's got to be at least 4K, 60 frames. If it's shooting 6K, we could downsample, fantastic. If you got great frame rates, 4K at 120, of course, that would be incredible. Stills, 20 megapixel, sure. At least a 1-inch sensor, sure. And that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop me a comment down below. Do you agree with me? Do you not? Do you think the Skydio 3 is in the works? Or are they just having too much fun with the Skydio 2? I always love hearing from you. We'll catch you on the next adventure.